everybody, it's Romania Black, and no big deal, we're just on episode 9 of Link Click. And last episode was pretty crazy because now the Red Eyes, Tian Shin, who is revealed to be Tian Shin at this point, him and Quan and Kian are working together, and they have kidnapped Lu, but Cheng may be in the body of Lu, and the timeline may be getting altered because of that stupid bathroom door, and I'm hoping it's a fake out. I'm hoping it's a red herring, but I don't know. I don't know I don't know what is in store, and I'm terrified, if I'm being honest. Absolutely terrified. So there's that. Wang may not be dead, which would be great for Chao's for Chao Li's sanity. And then Ling is just like, what do we do? Ling convinces Cheng to go back in the photo and try to change the past, thinking that that's what Lu intended. Now the question is, did Lu intend that indeed? Because I have comments I want to go through. I have quite a few comments, so we need to go ahead and just get started. A lot of these are from Anime Annie. just gonna go put that out there. Anime Annie talks about how Tian Shin had a bunny charm and Tian Chi had a cat charm, and I thought that was interesting because could Tian Chi have an ability similar to Lu's? Because Lu's power is to guide, could that be similar to Tian Chi's power? That's why they're the cats. But then does that mean that is Ling gonna gain a power like Tian Shin? Is Ling gonna be able to control people? That'd be great. I would be all for Ling being able to do that. It'd be like payback. But I don't know. I just thought the cat and the bunny charm was an interesting choice. Like, why didn't you give him the dog charm? I don't know. Anime Annie also notes that could Tian Chi have gained the photo control ability and Tian Shin took it from her? Yeah, we don't know this whole stealing ability thing, so that very well could be the case. And now Tian Shin is like collecting badges from Pokemon. He's got Tian Chi's power. Now he wants to collect Cheng's power, and then they can do whatever they want. Then if Tian Shin collects all the powers, him and Kian can just go and change the past. I don't know how the taking abilities works, but I thought that was interesting. And then what is the role of Emma? I really liked Anime Annie pointing out, what is the role of Emma? Are we going to go back to the whole K-Day Games thing in the timeline? It seemed like Liu Min was admitted to the hospital the same night the Red Eyes was supposed to get rid of the witness that could have spilled about Liu Min trying to trying to kill Emma, which means that back then the Red Eyes was working with the Liu family, which she's working with Chan, so that all makes sense. That all kind of connects together, maybe. And so they could all be related. And then later, the Red Eyes ends up possessing Liu Min, so it just seems like there's some relation there. It seems like the family was in cahoots with the lawyer, who's in cahoots with the kid with the power, and they were all tied together in this crazy way. But yeah, I'm very curious, right, what we're going to be getting with this. And there is a okay, so someone on Twitter shared, they were trying to be nice, and I appreciate it, I do, but I've been saying in these videos, I was like, I've not been looking at any promotional material because I feel like from what I've heard from people, the promotional material is giving some hints and clues away before they happen in the episode, which is a spoiler. The promotional material is just trying to spoil for us ahead of time, and so I've been trying to avoid that. And someone on Twitter was trying to be nice, and they're like, look at this poster! And I was like, no! So I clicked out of it. Luckily, the only thing I saw was a guy that kind of looks like Cheng in a cowboy hat. And then I clicked out, and I was like, please don't show me those things. So do not show me promotional material. I've said it countless times in the episodes, but I'll say it again. Please don't. That is a spoiler to me. Ruby is telling you not to do that either, right? But of course, that got me questioning, like, okay, obviously, because I don't want this to spoil the surprise, and I feel like it might, could the guy in the cowboy hat be Lu Chao, the brother? Could be. Is it Cheng from a different timeline? Who knows? We do know that, I'm 90% sure that whoever the person in the cowboy hat is, it's the friend that Tian Shin is talking about. Someone back at the beginning of the season, which is why I said I don't want to see promotional material, they shared a picture of Chan before we even really knew him, and then had a shadowy outline of the cowboy hat figure behind him. So now does that mean the cowboy hat figure is connected to Chan? Is it somebody Chan is possessed? Is it possibly somebody that's trying to thwart Sean? We don't know. It opens up this whole basket of questions. The good thing is we don't know enough about this figure to know any real spoilers, but please just don't share promotional stuff because I don't want to see it. If it spoils the surprise, that will be bad for the reactions, so please don't. And then I'm going to save, there are 29 questions that Anime Annie has asked, along with a timeline of events. And I'm going to save that for after the episode, because then I have a feeling we're going to bring Whiteboard Coon out anyway, so I'll take care of it then. But, so Anime Annie's got a whole bunch of questions, timeline to go over, all this stuff. We'll bring it out on Whiteboard Coon here in a minute, but I was like, I couldn't wait. I was like, what are we going to do? One thing that was noted within this timeline of the 29 questions was that Anime Annie noted it was very weird that in season 1 there were lots of dates, times, locations, things to like pinpoint like certain things happening, which we'll talk about after the episode. But then in season 2, there are specifically no dates, no times. It's almost as if the series doesn't want you to know when or what time things are happening. The only times we've really seen things on a phone has been in the last couple episodes where we saw when Lou left the hospital and when Cheng used that to determine when to go to the hospital too. But I told Anime Annie, I wonder if the creators were just like, this way we can't have any plot holes. We'll just delete the fact there's any times or days, and then nobody can say, oh, well, this date doesn't match up with this date, and blah. Because I guess there is a few discrepancies in the timeline from season 1 that are inconsistent, and she's noted them. And I was like, that's what they've done. The creators were like, well, we're just going to prevent any loopholes by not telling you what day and time things are happening. And it's like, or it's intentional and they're going to reveal it later. So, and it's going to be like a big thing. So, I don't know. We have 4 episodes left. What could happen? Lots of things. So, we're going to find out, though, and just see where it takes us. So, I'm excited, y'all. I hope y'all are, too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start episode 9 of Link Click Season 2. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Was this the best episode of the season? I think it was. Oh, well, you know, it's no big deal. It's just, we have, of Anime Annie's 29 questions, 28 questions technically. The 29th question was about why we don't have dates. We actually have some questions that were answered on here, so that feels good. That feels great. Unfortunately, I already have on the other side of Whiteboard Coon the unresolved plot points for Heaven Official's Blessing. I've left them up there. I'll probably have to erase this, and then at the end of the season, we'll just have to come back and then do here's the remaining questions that we have at the end of the season. But I feel like a lot of questions got answered in this episode, and a lot of questions got opened up, and a lot of questions were like, we're not going to answer it for you, but also here's kind of an answer, and it's like, that's not good enough, show. But oh my god, yeah, a lot of things make more sense. A lot of things I still am interested about. The plot didn't necessarily go anywhere this episode. It was like the season said, oh, you need some answers. Okay, we'll give you some answers moving forward, so you know. But in giving you answers, we're going to make you question lots of things. And a lot of the things don't necessarily have answers. I think it's funny that it's 3 stories, right? We have a 3-act structure. 3 acts, 3 people. If you notice, the number 3 has been prevalent throughout this entire series by design. There are 3 crane games. There are 3 officers that were in the room when Lou left. There are Sean and the twins, which make 3. There's Ling Guang and Lu Guang and Cheng, which is 3. There is Chin and Wang and Chow, which is 3. It's like the number 3 plagues this series. And there are 3 powers. There's 3 eye colors. I mean, well, there's 3 eye colors. The powers could be multifaceted, as we've seen with the red eyes. But yeah, the number 3 like haunts this season, and we have 3 episodes left. And we have 3 stories. So what's interesting about it is that the 3 stories are connected, but they're not connected. There's like the first part that sets up something, the second part that's talking about what we've been asking questions about, and the final part, which is almost like giving you a thematic understanding of what this means and how we've gotten to this point. And it's just, I mean, the big question is if Cheng decides not to go with them, then what happens? How does the story change? If Cheng doesn't get on that boat, it is in direct contrast with everything leading up, unless, here's the thing, I think he's still going to end up on the boat, and here's why. Because I feel like Cheng is going to stop at that moment and be like, I'm not going. But then the Red Eye's going to be like, yes, you are, and gets him on board and gets him to go on the boat and changes and keeps the timeline going, right? Because otherwise then we can't have it. So, I don't know. I mean, I think he's going to end up on this boat. I think Tianxin's going to reach out and grab him, because if you notice back in episode 8, whenever Cheng looked at Ling, and then when he looked back, Lu was getting on the boat and didn't have any control. So I think that Cheng will try to stop in Lu's body to say, no, I'm not going with you this time. But I think that he's going to end up on the boat anyway. I could be wrong. The fabric of time itself could be destroyed next episode. Who knows? But I think he's going to end up on the boat. I think that the point is, like Ling said, it's going to end up being this circular thing. He's going to end up going with them. Now, where we go from there, I don't know. I don't know at all. But I'm like, we're going to talk about this, because I went back through the Discord. I wrote down the questions. I wrote down the timeline, the important parts of the timeline that I want to note. The timeline is quite confusing, and as it should be. It's this series. We've been going back and forth in time, and I feel like that's kind of the important part about this second season. We have no clue how further back and forth we've been going in time, and I think the show's done that by design, so that we don't know for sure until it's ready to reveal itself, right? Until it's ready to reveal itself. But I did go through the Discord, and a lot of the things people were saying are things that I was going to talk about anyway, so I'm like, I'll just bring them up in the discussion. But then a lot of things were pointing out things that I'm like, oh, now I'm getting confused. So I'm just going to go through the episode and talk to you all about what I think. And if it matches up with what we've been saying in the Discord, cool. If it points out new things, cool. And if I missed something that you talked about in the Discord, then comment down below, and I'll be sure to mention it next week when we get to episode 10. But, yeah, or I guess by that time it'll be episode 11, so, but yeah, I'm so fascinated. This episode was amazing. I loved it. It was long. It was like 27 minutes. I was like, yes, Link, click, make all the rest of the episodes 30-minute episodes. Do it. No one's stopping you. Go for it, please. Around the 20-minute mark, I was like, I thought we were just going to end it. And I was like, okay, because it was starting to wrap up part 3 with the fairy tale story around the 22-minute mark. I'm like, okay, they're going to end it there. But then they don't. And I was like, yes. So this episode stylistically has been the best of the season. I love the black and white, all the shadows. It felt so dramatic, which the theater house, and Sean looking at the poster of the couple now, he's looking at the poster of his wife. Isn't that the creepiest thing? He's looking at the poster of his wife. I'm like, what? So, and that's why he's just getting all riled up. Well, we're going to talk about that. But I want to go back to this episode. I freaking loved this so much. So we had the thing about how did Lu get out? It was a big old red herring. We're going to go down here to question 28. Is this officer, is he suspicious, or is he a red herring? No, he's a red herring. It was just a red herring. I said that at the end of episode 8. I'm like, I know this show. I know the formula by now. It's trying to trick us. It's trying to make us be like, oh, what's the cliffhanger? And then we're going to come back and Lu's going to find a way to get out. And it's going to be like something's going to distract him at the last second, and that's exactly what happens. So, good. I'm glad it went that way, because I did not want, time to end now. But there's all these little moments, right? All these little moments where Cheng is like, if one little thing had messed up, it would have changed the course of things. And what's so interesting about this episode is that throughout it, it's almost like que sera, sera. Like Cheng is just realizing, wow, everything is set into motion to go along and be this pattern. Because it's like the woman, as he's running down the street, the woman has the table and she moves out of the way to let him buy her. If she had moved the other direction, he wouldn't have been able to go on, and would have delayed him by a second, which could have altered the course of time. And every little thing, it's like the light turning with 5 seconds left. The fact that Tianqi and him cross paths, everything, right? It all is just by design how it ends up happening. And Cheng at the end is like, okay, I've seen that everything inevitably leads to the same course of event. What if I change past? I'm like, Cheng, we shouldn't be changing the past. We know how that Lu has advised us against that. However, If Cheng does in fact indeed change the past and doesn't get on that boat, then what? Because then Lu's not in their possession, and then I'm not going to think too deep into it because I think he's going to get on the boat. I think Tianxin's going to grab and make him get on the boat and possess him. But if he doesn't, then Tianxin has no one to give to Chan. So what do we do with that? How is Chan going to react to nobody being there? Lu Min, or not Lu Min, but Lu Guang, if his wounds open back up, they'll be with Ling. They can get him back to the hospital. So there's that. He can go back into Cheng's body. So there's that. It could alter everything. And then Cheng could be like, explain, Lu, what do we do with this? What aren't you telling us? And then we could talk about it. But how does that affect time? How does that affect the timeline? Does it splinter the timeline and now there's 2 timelines? Like, what? Has this already happened? What do we do? Is Cheng going to be punished for altering the timeline? How do we do that? What is it going to kick him out of the photo? What happens? I don't know. I think he's going to end up getting on the boat. I think that the time loop is not going to be destroyed yet, but the question is going to be, then what? What do we do with that? So, I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that's going to go down next episode. That's the cliffhanger that's the most interesting. And then the other thing is, Cheng didn't stop Tianqi, so him not stopping her allowed her to be found, which in turn allowed them to question her, and she's drawing the drawing, right? And that's what we're going to find out. So there's the thing about, Tianqi. I'm going to put this on here. Kind of the missing link here. Tianqi, what is she drawing? That would be my question to add, but we're going to find the answer out, I'm sure, by the end of this season, right? Of what she's been drawing. They couldn't talk about the present or the future now because we need to go back in the past and figure out, like, how we got to this point, right? There's also an added photo in the opening, and I wanted to go to it. I wanted to go back to it, and Crunchyroll is super slow, so I gotta find my way back. But I wanted to get to it and talk with you all about what it looks like. Let me go back to that picture and see if it'll give it. The OP is like just changing ever so slightly, and I'm like, how dare you, show? How dare you do this to us? Like, it's great, right? So also, something else in the OP I was going to talk about when we got to it, but I want to find this photo first and see if it'll show us anything. There's a photograph that is shown at the very beginning of the OP. I'm going to go back to it and see if it'll give us any yeah, it's a photo, but is it of the 2 of them? I think it's of the 2 of them. Yeah, I think it's the photo of the mom and the daughter. Also, whenever Cheng first goes up the skyscraper, when he first goes up there as the song is playing, there is like the primary colors. He starts going up out of the water, and then when he comes back out of the tunnel and it gets all sketchy, if you notice, like, you can pause it, it starts out blue, there's a flash of blue and then lots of red, and then there's like yellow flashing by too. It's the primary colors, right? Meaning something to do with the powers, right? I will make note, the Lu Zhao friend, we're going to talk about the friend and the brothers and everything. I thought his eyes were gray, which are the color of Lu Guang's eyes. So, what do we do with that? Let's get out of this preview and go to 3 stories. The 3 acts. It's not really 3 acts. It is really 3 stories. When I saw that, I was like, oh, we have 3 episodes left. Are we going to get 3 different endings of how this... Is this going to be like a choose your own adventure where you have 3 different endings? You have the good ending, the bad ending, and the okay ending? I don't know. I'm like, I don't put it past this show at all. 3 stories. So we start out with Act 1, Part 1, The Inevitable Tragedy. Okay, so Part 1 is the inevitable tragedy. I like that we do tragedy and comedy both in this episode, because that's like part of what I teach is theater, and we do a section on drama in my sophomore English class. And one of the things that we talk about is that, tragedy and comedy are often linked, and they're the 2 most popular forms of drama, of course. So the inevitable tragedy. So I want to go back to this. So we have the couple in the theater performing the play, right? And the play is not very, it's not full. There's like half a dozen people there, and Cheng kind of notes it later. He's like, you know, you guys aren't getting a lot of people coming to watch your plays, which means you're not making a lot of money, but it's their passion project. We'll talk about that. And Cheng is in the middle. He's not in the front row, which I think is interesting. He's not in the front row. He is in the middle seat. What it reminded me of was Citizen Kane, where Citizen Kane like has his wife star in all the productions, and he's just sitting there clapping like enigmatically, where he's like, yes, like trying to support her, but it's very creepy. That's what it reminded me of. And it's the fact that he's distanced himself from the stage and distanced himself from her. He's not in the very front row watching her so that she sees that he's there. He's in the shadows, which is when you see the lights pan out and he's the one in the shadows and everybody else is visible. It seems very thematic. And he's like, they're reading this like Shakespearean play together, and he's like, of what love can do that dares love attempt, therefore thy kinsmen are not let to me. And then she says, if they do see thee, they will murder thee. So if they know about you, they're going to murder you. And he's like, there lies more peril in thy eyes than 20 swords. And it shows the two of them like embracing each other in this very Shakespearean romance. And everybody's clapping except Cheng. He is in the darkness. I love the framing of that shot where it's like the V of darkness. He's directly in the center and he's not clapping for them. It's almost, what's so fascinating about this moment is that Cheng embodies the same energy as the dad. That jealous energy where we have this idea that Cheng is suspicious of his wife cheating on him. He's suspicious of it. And at this point, I believe he is suspicious because he's not clapping. He doesn't like that they are together. He gives off energy like the dad of the Liu family. The one that Tianqin hated. So it's like the irony of all ironies. I'm like, but Tianqin, you're working with the man that you hate. And we're going to talk about the hunter versus beast conversation, right? I'm like, you're working with the man that is the same type of man that you hated. So isn't that ironic? And everybody's kind of clapping. And the fact of how chiseled his features are in the darkness, it's insane. And the two of them hugging. And yep, and they have the starry eyes, and Cheng's just staring. But he's like crying too. Which it's like, is he crying because he's sad that he thinks that she's cheating on him? Is he crying because he's sad that he doesn't think that she loves him as much as she loves the other guy? Is he genuinely sad at the play? Cheng is a very interesting character to try to read, right? And the two of them like part ways, which seems so interesting. So yeah, so then I didn't realize it was his wife at first. I thought he was just watching a play and was moved by this performance. And then it shows the two of them. He's like, I couldn't hold my tears. And she's like, this is my husband. So this is the first time they're meeting. And he says, Lisa often mentions you. Yeah, so it's the first time they've met, which is interesting because that means he's not gotten off work to go see many of their plays. Now, where they're at, the theater that they're at, is the theater that they're in with Lou strapped to the chair, because that same wardrobe with the lights and everything is the same wardrobe that was in episode 8. So where he and Tianqin are meeting up at is the theater that they performed in, which is creepy. So the theater is the hideout. Which that also seems just such like a weird decision, because if you have these strong feelings about your wife, these strong emotions, why would your hideout be the one place you'd least likely want to be at? Why would you want to be in a place where you suspect your wife cheated on you? Why would you want to be in a place like that? Unless he has all these conflicting emotions about his wife. And does he have any regrets to her deaths? Like, and what he thought about her? We're going to talk about this. But it almost seems like so like self-mutilating, it seems masochistic to like have your hideout be the place where your wife potentially was cheating on you. That seems like as if you felt bad enough, right? He's a detective. So you're the Dao Shuhai. So Da Shuhai, he's like, oh, no. So he says his name is what instead? He says, no, it's Zhuang Shui, right? So the potential actor is Zhuang Shui. Now he says Da. Is Da, I'm not very familiar with Chinese titles. Is Da like a familiar name? So has he heard her say Da and thinks that it's familiar, and he's like, I'll just call you that. And he's like, oh no, that's not, we're not on a first name basis. But he's like, but you and my wife are. Was that why he was saying it? He says, she praises your acting skills. And he's like, she's a talented actress herself. And he says, nowadays, people who can appreciate such elegant art are fewer and fewer. And she's like, oh, well, you promised. I like that he kind of like calls out that people aren't like into like her artwork anymore. She's like, you promised to support my career. And he's like, of course. So we have the idea that she wanted to be an actress. Obviously, there's not a lot of money in that. So she said, you promised you'd support me in my acting, while you were a cop. Okay, makes sense. And he says, by the way, how's the new venue you visited together the day before yesterday? I heard the rent is lower. And he's like, the day before yesterday? He's like, new venue? We haven't found a suitable one yet. And she's like, oh, the old plant on Tiangtong Road. So Chon says that, let me get this right. Chon thought that I'm just going to put them the acting duo, went and visited this new spot or venue on Tiangtong Road. Now, the boy, I'm going to put ZS for him, he seems a little bit clueless about it. And she, Lisa, knows what they're supposed to be talking about in this situation. So she knows what it is. She's like, we went to see it after dinner that evening. And he's like, oh, yeah, I thought we would just take a look. And he has a sweat drop like, oh, they didn't really go there. Like, he's like, I thought we would just take a look. It's too expensive. I never thought we could rent it. And then Sean's like, well, Tiangtong Road. He's like, I remember the old plant was rebuilt into commercial offices. He's like, there's a really tiny area at the back. Like, she just instantly, like, says whatever needs to be said. Because he's like, that area? He's like, well, didn't they just tear that down and build commercial areas too there? And she's like, oh, it's a tiny area at the back of it. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Like, believe us. It's a tiny area at the back. It's inadequate for office use. So they secretly, what'd she say there? What'd she just say there? So it's inadequate for office use. So they secretly advertised it for rent. Mm-hmm. And she's like, come on, we could have a meal together. And he's like, nah, count me out. He's like, I don't want to be a third wheel with this detective that could literally question me and figure out that I'm lying. So the question is, he goes along with her. There are two possibilities here because Sean goes to the obvious conclusion that she's lying and she's cheating. So option one is that she's cheating. That is option two. Option one. Option two is that there's another motive, right? That's option two. Now, we need to talk about that option two because he just seems to be like, and the moment like one of the lights turns out, it's like the shadow goes over to his face and it's like he knows. I felt like the thunder rolls and the night the lights went out in Georgia were both playing the same time this episode was going on. The night the lights went out in Georgia, go listen to that song. It's by Ruben McIntyre. It's a cover of an older country song. That song and the thunder rolls seems like they were both very appropriate for this episode. I was like, oh, this old country music about cheating is highly appropriate. And so then Sean doesn't say anything, but he looks like, And so then he goes back to Chen, right? So he's getting distracted by Chen, who's like, hey, what's up? Like, you've been up really late. He's like, are you used to working with Zhao Li? And he's like, yeah. He's like, Captain Sean. He's like, you haven't been doing well lately. Like, are you okay? He's like, I came to see you to talk to you. He's like, and it's true why you are so absent-minded. And he's like, it's nothing. It's common for us to stay up all night. I really love the way that the style of this series is. It reminds me of Sin City. It's a very good style. And he's like, I'm not as resilient as I was before. I'm older. And Shin's like, you should spend more time with your wife when you're available. She must be lonely when she's at home. My girlfriend has complained to me several times too. He's like, aren't you about to get married? She's a good girl. Don't miss your chance. And he's like, I'm talking about you. Why are you throwing back at me? And he says, my wife. John says, and she says, nope, I just stay by myself. Now, there's the question. Somebody in the Discord is saying, does it sound like she's talking to a lover or is she talking to a friend? I feel like this opening line, I just stay by myself, is something you'd say to a friend. Like, why would you tell your lover on the phone that you stay by yourself? You're telling them that when you're making love to them and cheating with them. So why would you say that? Unless it was like, if she's talking to her friend or her parent or something, she says, I just stay here by myself. And she's sitting there twirling her hair. Now her back is to Chon, which is an interesting visual. She says, I stay by myself. And she says, what can I do? I've been living like this for so many years. But recently, I don't know what's wrong. My back always feels sore after just a few performances. Sometimes I can't even stand up straight. And he says she's busy with her own stuff. Now, the whole thing lately, somebody in the Discord was talking about how signs of pregnancy are that your back is hurting. I thought it was a sign that she had like a terminal illness. I thought it was like a sign of like her back was hurting, because sometimes that can be a sign of cancer. So I thought maybe that was like, meh. And Anime Annie's mind was good. It's like, she's having all the sex. It's like, so it could be one of three things. So she talks about, so she's either cheating or there's another motive of why she wasn't there the night to look at the apartments. Now, if she's cheating, then the possibility of her back hurting, I don't think it says she's having sex. Again, I don't think she was on the phone with her lover. I think she was on the phone with her friend or a family member, because she talks about how it's been going on for several years now. Again, if you're with a lover, you're going to be telling them all this stuff when you physically see them, not on the phone at your house. So I feel like she's talking to her family member, like her mom or her friend, being like, it's been like this, like, you know, somebody she's confiding in, saying like, I'm having this problem with my marriage. It's just, I'm all alone all the time, and I've not been feeling good lately, and I don't feel like I can talk to anybody about it because he's never home, and I don't want to wake him up. Like, it just feels like that. So I think that the conversation that they're having on the phone could talk about the other motive. Either that they have this illness they didn't know about, or that they're pregnant. And they're like, I don't know. Now, of course, somebody in the Discord said, well, if she's pregnant, you know, is it even Chon's, because has he not been home? That is a very valid question, right? Somebody said in the Discord, if Chong comes out in the series and says that he's sterile and can't have kids, well, then that solves everything. If he couldn't have kids and then suddenly she's pregnant, that will answer our question of whether she was cheating or not, right? That will basically give us our answer. But just because he's not been home lately doesn't mean he's not been home at all. And what we don't get in this episode is Chon saying that they were never intimate. It sounds like they could have been. It just, you know, is few and far between, right? They very well could have been, but maybe they weren't. We don't get a solid answer. We don't get conclusive evidence, right? Pa, what are you talking about? And I don't know if Pa is just like psh, somebody going psh, or if Pa is a name. And then we see him coming up from behind her as she's twirling her hair with the apron. Who said I can't fit into it? That's what makes me think she's talking to the friend, the confidant, because she says, who says I can't fit? And that's also what makes me think that it's not an illness. I think that she's pregnant, because she's talking about gaining weight, right? She talks about gaining weight. She says, who says I can't fit into it? I will admit, Chon is extremely creepy when he walks up next to her from behind and he is silhouetted in black in the shadows. Like, that felt like the dad from the dinner scene. It felt like he doesn't trust her. He thinks that she's cheating on him. Now, at this point, she's talking to, I think it's a friend she's talking to, because why else would you talk about fitting into clothes? She says, who says I can't fit into it? It's just a few pounds after I got married. I can lose the weight by eating less at night. And that's when she notices him. Now, she seems very nervous about him walking in on our conversation. So there is a question of why would she be nervous? Either she doesn't want him to know that she's pregnant, possibly because they've not been intimate and that will be a big telltale sign, or maybe he's sterile and that's a big telltale sign, or maybe she doesn't want him to know about it, maybe she doesn't even know about it, or maybe he was just freaking creepy coming up from behind her and it scared her, right? With this series, what do we know? Because then she immediately relaxes. She's like, oh. And then we see Zhao Li and him sitting outside drinking and eating over the barbecue. And he's like, enough. He's like, don't drink too much. And he tries to stop him, but it doesn't work. He just keeps drinking. And Zhao's like, okay, well, you're an adult. And I mean, we're assuming this is after she's died because he's just chuckling about it. I mean, like just manically laughing about her death, which is an emotional response and a valid one too, right? But he's just sitting there laughing about it. Like, it's one of those situations you don't know whether to laugh or to cry. Well, if you don't want to keep crying, I guess laughter it is, right? So then he tells Zhao, he's like, tell me, what's the point of working so hard? Because now, if she's died at this point, he's like, what's the point of working so hard? Because I was doing all this to support her. Now that she's gone, I don't have anyone to support. What's the point? We can't even keep our wives loyal. Now, he says we can't even keep our wives loyal. I don't know if Chao is married, if Zhao Li is married, or if he's divorced. I don't know if that's what that's suggesting, that Zhao Li was married and is divorced now. But he clearly thinks that his wife was cheating on him. He's like, Zhao Li, tell me, whose fault is it? Was it my fault? Was it his fault? Or was it her fault? So he's like, she's dead. Why? Now, what's interesting about this is, we'll get back up into this. Was Cheng, this is question 2. Question was, what happened to Cheng's parents? We don't know. Question 2 is Cheng Jin, his wife's murder, suicide. My thing is, if Cheng thought that she was cheating on him and then she died, why would he go after the murderer? Isn't that weird? Is that weird? I know that it's still his wife and he loved her, but if he thought she was cheating on him and she got murdered, why would he care what happened to the murderer? Why, you would think he'd be like, and this is terrible to say, but you'd think he'd be like, well, she deserved it. She was cheating on me. Why would he go, why would the murderer, why would Cheng, if the theory is that Cheng killed the murderer of her, why? At this point, if you think she was cheating on you, then what? That's a question for me. And then he's like, tell me, whose fault is all of this? And Zhao Li is like, why are you so silent? And he's like, there's something. And he says, there's something that I should have told you before. And that's when he says it to him. And that's what makes, like, Cheng snap. Now, when Chao Li is giving us this story and telling us about Cheng leaving the police department, he didn't mention this whole drama bullshit. He was just like, I just don't know why Cheng would leave. Chao, you just witnessed your friend have a mental breakdown about his wife's potential cheating and then death. What do you mean you don't understand why he left? I'm like, what? Zhao Li, now let's be serious. Because he cries, and he cries, but then he laughs about it. So, and he keeps pouring the drink, and he won't let him stop. And he just pours it till it overflows. So that's the question, right? The question is could he not have kids, and that was the telltale sign? Or did he know that he hadn't been intimate with her, and her being pregnant, confirmed she was cheating? Or is it the fact that he was happy about her being murdered because he was like, well, you're a cheater, and that's the thing too. That could answer that question there. If she died and he suspected she was cheating, and then he felt, if he suspected she was cheating on him and he didn't feel bad about her dying, being like, well, she deserved it, she was cheating on me, but then come to find out that Zhao's saying she was pregnant, Cheng, who's smart, puts 2 and 2 together and is like, wait a minute, the conversation on the phone, her being uncomfortable, all of this, she was pregnant, that's why she didn't go to see a place to rent or whatever, that's why it didn't happen. And then he felt guilty for feeling, happy about her dying, and then realizing that her and his possible kid died. That could be it too. Or it could be the fact that he realized that she was cheating and he was correct. But then if that was why he was laughing, it doesn't explain why the murderer had this sudden suicide or why Chong would do it, unless the murderer was framed and it was just to shut him up. I don't know. But then this whole idea of, we're going to go down to this question of their motives, of what their end game is, and why they're doing the things that they're doing. It's their form of justice. I'm like, but we're going to talk about it. I feel like there's a little bit more with Chong and the wife that we need to know that we've not been told yet. I love this entire episode is framed with Cheng running in Lu's body to go save everything. And again, the person moves the table at the right time and it just happens to work out, right? The time and everything is, fates are intertwined. It's destiny, right? So we get Act 2. Part 2 is the fortuitous comedy. Right? The fortuitous comedy. At this point, we need to bring up the timeline because Annie made a timeline. So I only included the dates that were kind of interesting on this. One being in 2008, which is however many years ago, Cheng's parents leave or go missing. We have the earthquake around that same time. In 2014, which is 6 years later, we have Chong's wife is murdered. The culprit commits suicide. The twins' parents die, and Chong leaves the police force. It all conveniently happens in 2014. 4 years later, Dodo is missing. Lu and Chong are on holiday overseas when it happens. In 2019, which is technically 5 years later from the time that all of this went down with Chong, they graduate. In 2021, which is technically 7 years later, after all that, Emma is possessed by Chong on April 13th. April 16th is when the crew gets the task to investigate the money siphoning from the accounts as tied to Lu's family. Then April 17th, the case is closed. Zhu Ji is arrested. The car crash paralyzes Lu Min on April 17th. April 18th, Lu Min's admitted to the hospital and Emma dies that same day, right? And she's our victim. Then we cut to months later in October. October 6th, Chen Zhao asks the team to give words to his mom, friend's sister. And on October 12th, Zhao Li comes up to the shop and Li Liang asks for help finding Dodo, which leads us back to 3 years in the past, right? And that gets taken care of. Then, who is our fifth victim, right? We also have Chai Chi is mentioned. We have the seventh victim that's missing, Nan Q, and then Xiaolin. All right. Then the 22nd of October, lots of things happen. Lu Min breaks into the photo shop possessed by the Red Eyes, is arrested, and then dies later in the hospital. Lu Guang is stabbed, and Chen Bin dies. Fun times. So lots of things happening. So this is the weird timeline, right? So the fortuitous comedy shows up that same time as his wife is dying. We have Chen, and Chan shows up with him to go investigate the case. Now, here's the thing. We don't know exactly how much time has passed since the wife has died, but here we are. This is such a creepy scene. And they go up there and explain what happened with the parents died. So we can rule out that no one, as far as we know, the murderers of the parents is in that apartment with the twins. So I don't think Tianxi has anything to do with it. I think she is traumatized and she doesn't know herself what's been going on. That's a good point. I think that either the parents stabbed themselves and the brother said it was his fault because of his powers or whatever activating, or the brother possessed the dad, and then when he went out of the mom's body, she stabbed herself. And he says it's his fault because he's technically responsible for both their deaths. I think that could very well be the case. The one thing that's really nice is that when they show up on the scene, they see the guy, the neighbor that's the informant. They see him. But then, and somebody was suspecting that it was Ma, which looking at him now, I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, is it? But no, they end up killing him. They kill the informant. He's one of the victims. And somebody was suggesting on Discord that maybe he's one of the victims whose information is missing, because that would link stuff together. maybe, possibly. But yeah, he ends up being the victim. And then I like that the moment they see the kids, everything turns to color. And yes, Cheng looks like he instantly connects and feels their grief. He understands that this bad stuff is happening. Now, when he goes to hug the twins, when he goes to hug them, right? He gives them a hug. The girl is obviously sad. Like Cheng looks very much empathetic and very much understanding of their grief, and he's grieving with them. Like, he looks like that, right? He looks genuine. The girl, like, he hugs them like he's genuinely grieving. The girl's grieving with him. The boy, Tianchen, no, he is not grieving with them. He seems upset and angry. And that's when they, like, tell him to, like, go over there and investigate. And that's when he pulls back and he says, could you tell me exactly what happened? And the boy says, it was I who killed them. And then it's like him and Cheng have this connection where they both realize something, like, about the situation. And it almost seems like in that moment, the two of them understand one another. Like, Cheng potentially, you know, his wife got killed, but she was cheating. So it's like they got their just desserts. And then in the boy's case, the dad died who was abusing the family, so he got his just desserts. But we don't think the mom was cheating on anybody, so that part's kind of weird. But they both seem like they both, you know, had this comeuppance given by them to someone that deserved it. Because then the girl's crying. Tianchi is just stricken with grief. She's just terrified about this entire incident. She seems innocent in all this. But then the boy starts laughing, like, maniacally about all of this. And then Cheng, like, starts laughing maniacally about this. I'm like, was there laughing gas through all this? Was the laughter between everybody in every scene, was it real, or was it, this is all considered an act, right? They say act 1, act 2, act 3. Is this the theatrical representation of the understanding of their own inner demons and their own inner turmoil? And it's just them, because this all seems like it's theatrical, which it's meant to be by design. So because when we come back to reality, it doesn't have all the shadows and everything like the acts do, the parts do. So is the maniacal laughing that someone has leaked laughing gas into the locations that we're watching? Or is it supposed to be a visual representation of them understanding each other and then being like, yes, the world is so awful that we're just going to laugh instead of cry and deal with it ourselves, right? I like to think that it's a stylistic choice, the laughing situation, because the man, Cheng and Tianqin are laughing because they understand each other, and Tianqi is not. She's absolutely not on board with any of this. So then we go back to the fountain, right? And this has been some time, this was the moment where he's like, oh, well, because it shows him saying, then you live with him. And he says, I remember that you told me to become the hunter in the jungle, right? So they're seeing each other after the fact, right? This is happening after their initial meeting, right? They go back and meet together at the pool again. They met each other with the soccer ball before when he was going, because he looks older in this shot. He looks older, and the friend looks older too, right? Like they're meeting each other again, wearing similar clothes, but they've seen each other after the fact, because he looks a little bit older there. Now, we're going to get to all these questions and go through them, but because he looks a little bit older there. So now, is this referring to the fact that at this point, when he's talking to the friend who we think is now Lu Zhao, are we thinking that it's after they've moved in with Cheng, like they've been taken in by him, and he says, you told me to be a hunter. And he was like, oh, well, now what do you think of me? So this is after the fact. It's after he's killed the dad. He's like, you told me about being a hunter. I've become one. What do you think of that? And he says, oh, you're like a wild, wounded beast. Do you know the difference between a beast and a hunter? And Tianqin says, well, beasts are more ferocious, but hunters are more cunning. And the friend kind of laughs at it. He's like, no, that's not right. And then he says, beasts only hunt when they're hungry. And he says, but hunters are different. And so here's the thing that I think is the most important about this entire scene. His eyes. His eyes look gray, right? It says Mr. Liu. His eyes are gray, which are the same color as Lu Guang's. I'm just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. We've not met the brother yet. We've not met the brother. I'm just throwing it out there. Do I think Lu Guang and Lu Zhao are the same people? No. But I'm just throwing that crazy theory, crackpot theory out there. But his eyes are gray, right? They're not brown like Lu Min's are shown to be later in this episode. And you would think if they're meant to be the same people, their eyes would be the same color, but they're not. So I think Lu Zhao and Lu Min are separate. They're the one that they interact with later is Lu Min, but it's not him. And he says, Mr. Liu. And he's like, it's time to go. Now, for all we know, because Lu Min says that he recognizes Tianxin later, for all we know, Lu Min is in the car right now looking out the window and seeing him on the bench. For all we know, he's on the bench with him watching and seeing his brother interact with this kid. Absolutely could happen. For all we know, we've not been shown a future scene where Lu Zhao interacts with Tianxin again, and I think Lu Min's in the vehicle and sees them together, because he asks, he's like, well, I gotta go. He says, I believe in the near future, you'll definitely encounter the opportunity to be a hunter. Now, the question is, how does he know? What's going on? How does he know this? What's happening? He says he'll be late if you don't leave now. Time is connected with all of this, right? He says, will we meet again? And he says, surely we will. That's the question. Like, he goes off with him, right? But then what? But then they go into the house, right? I feel like this is a fake out. I don't think that, because she sees him. It's like, oh, who are you looking for? And they're looking for him. But they said the guest is looking for your father, and then they see him on the porch, and he's standing there. But I'm like, is it really Lu Min? Was Lu Min the kid from the past? But his eyes are brown. He says, I heard about your father from your experience. I feel sorry about that. And he's like, I know it was thanks to you that the matters about the woman could be solved. So is that the whole deal with Emma? And he's injured from the car crash, and that's why he's sitting there drinking. Is he paralyzed at this point? Because doesn't he stand up? Is he paralyzed at this point? And they're talking about Emma. What can I do for you? And then he says, oh, he's not paralyzed at this point because he's like able to move his like limbs and stuff a bit, and he's not in the wheelchair. So at this point, this is before the hospital case. So this is right before the case was closed and the car crash paralyzed him. So it could have been on the 16th. My big question to all of this that I don't think is on this board, maybe it is and we'll go back to it, is why were they assigned to the Emma case to begin with? Who assigned them to the Emma case? Because why would Sean do it? Why? Why would Sean assign them to the case to begin with? If he knew there was a chance of somebody like getting in the way, why would he do it? The only thing I can think of is at some point, this is all this big circular timey-wimey cycle. And Sean realizes that to get Cheng, he has to orchestrate. But that would involve him going back into the past, which we know doesn't happen. They don't have the power to go back in the past. They want Cheng to go back in the past to change their own fates, so they can't go back in the past to know this. So my question is, who hired the investigation to begin with? Because Sean doing it makes no sense. They didn't at the time know what Cheng's ability was, so they would have no reason to ask for them to investigate, right? They would have no reason to do that. Because back in the past, they couldn't go back in the past to influence it. That's why they want Cheng's power to begin with. So there was no reason for them to ask if they wanted the whole Emma case to find out who was siphoning money. I guess the only thing I can think of is if they hired, but here's the thing. You would think, okay, well, they've hired Lu and Cheng to go back and solve the Emma case to just pin the siphoning of money onto somebody, but that wasn't the Min family or the Lu family, so okay. But at the same time, them hiring Cheng and Lu would suggest that they knew automatically what Cheng and Lu's powers were, which we know they didn't, because Red Eyes didn't figure it out until the night that Lu was stabbed and Cheng was talking to him, which was afterwards with the photograph in October after all this took place. So the person that hired them to start this whole thing, if it was Lu, if Lu went back in the past and like influenced this whole thing to get the ball rolling, I don't know. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense for Chon to be the one to hire them to begin with, because that would mean he already knew their powers, which he didn't, which would mean, like, why have this all happen? What? No. I don't know, damn it. Ah! My whole brain, y'all. But anyway, so we go back to this whole thing with Lu, and then he's like, he looks familiar. But now he's like, hey, have we met somewhere before? But my thing is, like, if Tianqin knew that was Zhao, or if he knew the friend was, but they said in the Discord that it was Lu Zhao was the one that was the friend that met with Tianqin, not Lu Min. So Lu Min might have been in the car watching them meet, and that's why Tianqin's like, I don't know how you know me. But that's the only explanation I can think of, because I would like to think that if it was Lu Zhao there, Tianqin would be instantly wanting to talk to him. But their personalities don't seem quite right. Lu Zhao seems a lot more sinister and tricks, a lot more like Chan and more cunning. And Lu Min and Tianqin laughing there seem more like they're similar. They're the beasts. So it's the idea of the beasts only hunt. Beasts only hunt when they're hungry, when it's a necessity. Beasts only attack when it's a necessity. Hunters target their attacks, and they do it for a purpose. It could be to satisfy their hunger, but it's more calculated than that, right? So then that's when Lumen talks about the trolls, asking them to do me a favor. And it makes sense now that the one guy he has the photograph of to target is a guy that was a gamer that would be an online troll too. It all makes sense, right? The fortuitous comedy. And he's like, I know that you are able to hurt people using the powers that you have. So that's why he's looking at him. He's like looking at him like, okay, the unspoken rule is that you can get rid of people using special powers. I need you to do that for me. And then Chan says, well, it's not me, it's my associate here. So the question is, how did he know about Tianqin's powers? Why hasn't he been grooming him? Is Tianqin... It makes it sound like Tianqin and Chan are working together. And they've been working together for a while now. So, which is very interesting. And that's when he shows the photo. He's like, Mr. Lu, you must be joking after drinking so much. And that's when he presents him with the photo. And he's like, it depends on if he's willing or not. And when he looks at it, that's when he laughs, because the fortuitous comedy is that the man they're hired to kill is the guy that started this whole thing. Oddly enough, right? And then that's why he's laughing. So then Lu goes across the time frame, and that's when he like crosses paths with Tianqi. The siblings fairy tale is part 3. So the thing that gets interesting about this is we basically have everything leading up to the night that the parents died. And we have the guard there, as well as we have the guard represented, and also the one guy that's the gamers represented too. And they talk to each other, and they're spreading all the lies, and the boy's getting mad because they're just fueling the fire that makes the dad angry, and they're laughing about it when the boy is like, you guys laughing about these rumors are getting my dad upset, and it's causing him to come home and abuse my mom, and I don't like it, right? And they just fly off. They don't have to deal with the consequences. They just fly away like it's nothing. They have the ability to fly away from the situation and not be involved. I love the symbolism of the fairy tale, because it shows that the two people that gossip, like, they cause all this damage and destruction within this family, but then they just fly away like it's not their problem. They have the freedom to escape the situation and it not affect them. Whereas the boy and his sister are tied to this situation, and it's like a house on fire they can't escape. Like, they can't fly away. And it shows like the damage that stuff like that causes. Now, regardless of the rumors, the dad shouldn't have beat the wife, but here we are. And so it shows the two of them going after them. Now, and then there's the birds swarming around them, the cuckold, right? And they fuel the fire. Now it shows everything goes pitch black. And then it shows like the next day. And it shows the sister by herself. And then she finds the brother and he's putting like the flower on the grave, the red ring of flowers. So that leads me to believe that the boy killed the dad using his power and killed the mom. But maybe in the process of him holding the sister, like she's able to, I think the cat charm is that she has the power like Lou. She can see in the photographs. She can see in the photographs and guide like what Lou can do. I think she has that ability. She can guide people like Lou does. But I think that Tianqin's power is its own, where he can control people either through the photo. I think her power to go through the photographs, I think she combines her power to look into the photographs with his power to control people. I think that's what she does. She has the power to look into photographs like Lou does. And I feel like that's her ability. If her eyes go blue at some point, it's going to be really cool. But I think that she has the power to look in the photographs. I think he uses that power to possess people from the photographs as well. Or he's taken that power from her. She had the power to look like Lou did, and he took it from her, and now he can like look in the photos and take people over within them, or he can just take people over. I think that that's the case. And then we meet Chan, who is the hunter. Now it's either, and it's Chan, I thought for a second it might be Chan or Lu Zhao, but Chan is the one who's the hunter that says, oh, you have a power. I'm going to give you a means to use it now and a purpose. I'm going to give you the means to utilize this power to take revenge on people. And he shows how, I'm going to show you how to kill the ones that have wronged you, the ones with injustice. And he watches Tianqin, and Tianqin's like, oh yeah, I can fight back with this now. I can right the wrongs of this world. And they both go off together with Chan after the parents' death, right? And just like they do in real life. And then he starts using his power, and he starts killing. The first one he kills is the one that was doing the gossiping. The first bird that dies is represented the same bird that was the gamer, right? And I like the whole time Chan's hood is over his face, right? The hunter's hood is over his face. We see the red underneath, right? We see the blood red underneath, like the anger and rage, but it's hidden behind the hood. And the sister looks like and you see the hunter smile at the boy fox using the power, but the sister's like, oh, I don't like this. I'm not crazy about this. And it shows another bird dying and another bird dying. So that's 3. And then we have a 4th bird dying, right? And then we have a 5th bird dying. Okay, that's 5 birds that have been shot through with the arrow. And the 2 of them are really excited about all this and smiling, but the sister's not happy with this. She's like, I don't like this concept. And so we have 5 birds that have been dead, and then we see the red like Rambo bandana that the hunter's wearing with the feather through it, right? A golden feather, by the way. So we have a red bandana and a golden feather. Okay, so does that mean he's using the red powers with the brother, but he has a golden eyes, like the golden power? And then we see him offer like the food to the boy, and and then he shares it with the sister, but the sister doesn't want it. I like that. So it's almost like, okay, this is representing the spoils being shared by them, and she doesn't want to take part in it. She does not want to have anything to do with what they've done. And she instead just wants her brother back. And he just strokes her hair being like, hey, it's okay, sis. And she's like, I just want my brother back. And it seems constantly like she just wants him back. And she stays by his side, and he keeps like petting her, being like, oh, everything's okay. But then one day he leaves her, and she looks over and sees the family with the family of rabbits with the 2 twins, which is literally exactly like her and him. And she's like, don't do this. Now you're not just hunting birds that were flying away. Now you've targeted people on land who have things to do with us and have a similarity to us, and this isn't the same. I can't stand for this. Right? And she runs off. So that's the question, right? Like, is this representing the Chin family? Is it representing something else? I mean, that would be we have 5 birds dead. That would be 6, 7, and 8. Could that be the innocent? Could it represent the 3 innocents, like Dodo, the kid, Emma, and someone else? I don't know, but she gets mad and cries at him, being like, "Why are you hurt?" Because okay, so we see the mom saying sorry to her, and then but looking up to her, and then we see Chin Bien say, I'm sorry," as he's about to jump. So was she there when he was about to jump? Was he there? That is the question. Was she there? That's the question. Because why else would he look at her unless she was there? And then she freaks out because she doesn't like it. Or are the 3 rabbits representative of Lu and Cheng and Ling? And he fires the arrow, but it misses. It cut the ear of the rabbit. Oh, is Lu the big rabbit? Oh my God, is Lu the big rabbit protecting the 2 little rabbits, which could be Cheng and Ling? And the little slice of the ear is like the stab in the gut that the Red Eyes was doing, but she stopped him because she's like, "Why are you doing this? They haven't done anything." Oh, that could be, because she was like, "I'm tired of you doing this." No. And then she runs away, and he runs after her, and she keeps running, and he can't catch up, and that's when we see her represented as the twin sister. Yep, okay. And then that's when they're both running past each other. I love seeing Cheng and her. "There's something I should have told you before. Your wife was pregnant when she was murdered." And that's when he says, "And so," and then he laughs about it. Yeah. And then he laughs about it too. Like just the tragedy of it all. Huh. Okay. And then they're about to run. And that's when he shows him the picture. And the picture that he sees is of the guy that he wants to target. And it's does this mean that he agrees? And it's the picture of the guy that was spreading all the rumors. A toast to the death of a scumbag in the world. So, the death of a scumbag in the world. So, I'm assuming that does mean that she had been cheating on him, and so he was laughing because it was a death to somebody that was cheating that was a scumbag to them. The same way with the gamer, right? And then he says, "I believe in the near future you will definitely encounter the opportunity to be a hunter." And that was it. So that is interesting with Lu Zhao. Like, it's interesting, right? And then the sister, even if there are countless possibilities. Now, at this point, they both run across the street, but it seems like they're running across the street at different times, right? They run across at different times. This is the inevitable destiny. The finale. And then he goes on there and he says, all coincidences, what does he say there? All coincidences will be eventually inevitable. And he says, "I'm sorry, Lu Guang. Because of you, I don't want to proceed down this path." And he goes like towards the boat, but then he stops. And then stops there like, so what happens? What happens then, right? Why? What? Ah! Okay. Oh my God. So, yes, lots of questions. So, a question here, what happened to Chong's parents? We don't know. Chanjin's wife's murder, suicide? Was it suicide or was it not? That part's still interesting to me because why would you go after a scumbag that killed your wife if you think your wife was a scumbag. So that part's interesting to me still. Lee Tianchen's friend, childhood friend. Well, we can answer that question that it is Liu Zhao. It is Liu Zhao. We've only seen him that one time. He's a bit sinister. I don't know what you think about him. How did the parents of the twins die? The blood on the dress. The blood on the dress isn't in the image in this episode, and so Anime Annie was questioning why if it was just an inconsistency in the animation. I think that's what it is. I think maybe she tried to stop her brother or be like, what are you doing? And he was like, eh. So Lu Guang's past, don't know. Overseas Lu and Cheng, what were they doing? We don't know. Lu Min's laundered money, where did it go? Did it go to Chin Bin's house? Was it used to frame him? Was the laundered money used to frame him and that was a way to get rid of it? If you're trying to get rid of laundered money and you pin it on somebody else and use it as an alibi for their suicide, that would solve a lot of questions. So I think that's what happened. I mean, I'm going to count it off right now. I think that it went to frame Chin Bin, which is, was he taking bribes? No, I don't think he was. I think it was used to frame him. Because they needed to get rid of the money. And that's just what they had to do. Tianchen's personality change. Again, I don't want to be... I know that we've tied... I'm not saying Tianchen's a bad person. But I do wonder, like, you know, I think the conch on the head with the hammer could have definitely done something with it. Not saying it didn't. But I still maintain that I think that there is a little bit of Tianchen's father in him that kind of came out along with that. But I do think it's part of his personality. I just do. That doesn't make him exactly like his dad. It doesn't mean he was going to go down the same path. I think the hit on the head with the hammer definitely exacerbated it. But I do think that was part of him all along. And it just took that hammer knock to get it unloose, right? That's what I think. I think that's the answer to the personality change. It's either was all of a part of him, it just took a traumatic event to release it, or the hit with the hammer caused it. Either way, Tianqi wants her brother back, and unfortunately, I don't think that's possible. I don't know. At this point, I don't know if that's possible, or if she wanted them to go back in the past to, we'll talk about the photo in a second, if she wanted them to go back in the past to save them. This victims of the serial killer, are they linked to Chan and the twins? Yep, I think so. I think that they are, the victims are people that were targeted by either Lu Min or by people they consider to be scumbags, or in some way had it coming, and they're just, that's their form of justice. The seventh victim, we could say that it maybe was the gamer guy, and they hid the information because that would have, the question is, why get rid of the information? I guess to hide the fact that they were connected to it, and that would be a way for them to further connect them and try to figure everything out. Maybe, so maybe it was the gamer guy. Knock that one out. Lots of questions getting answered this episode. What do the eye colors mean? Don't know about that. The stealing abilities, we still don't know about that. How did Li Tianchen get his abilities? We still don't know about that. We don't know the conditions for it. How did Qian get his scars? I mean, could be from the police force. Could just be on the job. Just like that. Who knows? Chan Bin, was it a suicide? No, if it was a suicide, it was only because he felt it was the only way to possibly get rid of the red eyes. And that's all I could think of. But, Chu Yang, and maybe he thought he had to commit suicide to save his wife, because otherwise they'd target her. I don't know. Bubai, his bright light, what is that? We don't know. Who gave Lu Guang the photo? Was it Tianqi or Tianchen? I think at this point that it was Tianchen who gave them the photo so they would go back in the past and figure out enough about their past to then go to the police house and talk to Tianchen. Tianchen was using it as a way to lure Cheng to the police house. But I think that Tianqi might have gave the photo to them under the guise that they could also, I feel like Tianqi might have had her own agenda, and she went along with Tianchen being like, oh yeah, I'll go give him the photo like a good sister, when she might have had her own motives of, please go back and save my brother. She might have wrote on the photo when she gave it to them being like, please go back and save my brother from what's happening, or go see how he was in the past before he changed so you can save him in the present. So I think it could have been twofold. I think Tianqin wanted her to give Lu the photo to lure Cheng there eventually, but I also think that she gave the photo being like, please save my brother, and then here we are. Now the question is, it's either that or Tianqi gave Lu and them the photo so that they would go back in the past, learn about her brother, so she hoped they would either stop the situation or find out enough to possibly save him in the future. Don't know. The other question, which twin took Lu Min's phone and why? Yeah, his phone is still missing. Why? I think it was Tianqi. I think Tianqi took it. I think she's holding the phone so that they don't have all the power in the situation. I think Tianqi is like, I don't like what my brother is doing. I don't like what's happening. I want them to stop. I want my good brother back. So if this keeps them from accomplishing their goals, then I'm going to do it. And that's why, again, why is Li Tianqi considered a traitor by Chan? Because she's not going along with the plan. And she's not supporting their justice agenda. And now he's like, well, if your sister doesn't go along with us, then she's a traitor and I can't be responsible for what happens to her. So that's why they want to find her as well. Was it Lu or Chang that sent the location to Ling? I don't even know at this point. At this point, I'm like, the time loop is like, does it even matter anymore? Because it could have been either of them, right? It could have been both of them. Is Lu a time traveler? I want answers on Lu so badly, but I don't think we're going to get it this season. I think it's going to come in the live action or in season 3. Is Wang alive? I hope so. Because I think that could help, get Chan captured, but I don't know. What does the passcode of Lu Guang's phone mean? We're not going to find that out, I bet, until the end of the season or season 3. What is the end game of either? I mean, I think Lu is just trying to live in this life, and I think Lu Guang might be trying to save Cheng from a fate that has been preordained, and he's trying to, break the code. Or he's just trying to live a life, and then he's stumbled upon Cheng, who got the powers, and was like, oh, I need to stay with this guy so things don't go awry. I mean, it seems that Chan and Tianqin's end goal is that they just want to keep punishing people, and they're doing this vigilante justice, and it's just gotten too twisted and gone too far. At least Tianqi thinks so. Do the twins' matching accessories mean anything? We were talking about the matching accessories that they have, like the ring and stuff. Is it just merchandise that the show's wanting to sell, or does it have a purpose? I don't know. I think we'll find out. And then, is it Lu or Chang that's in the chair? Well, I think that I'd like to think that it's Chang in the thing about it is, if Cheng in Lu's body decides not to go with them, then do we have a timeline where Lu is in the chair dying, and we have another timeline where Lu is not in the chair dying? And how do these two timelines interact? Is it possible they interact? What are we gonna do, show? I still am 50% sure that Cheng is gonna end up on that damn boat in Lu's body because Tianqin's gonna grab him. I think 50% of me thinks that it could happen. The other 50% of me is are we about to alter the time continuum and it's gonna get really weird with 3 episodes left? Possibly. But yeah, so, oh my God. There's a lot to think about with this episode, and I've talked for over an hour and 10 minutes. Oh my God. So yes. I am going to go consult Discord with some of my thoughts, but I'm really excited to hear what y'all think. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode, this reaction discussion. I feel like a lot of things were answered for us, but I also feel like there's lots of things that we're almost there with so many questions. There's so many questions here that I feel are one part off. We're so close that they've given me just enough that I'm okay, I kind of think I know, but there's nothing definitive. And I feel like it's going to give us something definitive, just we're not there yet. And it's so frustrating, but we'll get there. If Link Click has taught us anything, we just have to be patient. So, with that in mind, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 10 of Link Click.